Hey, what's up? My name is Omar Black. I'm a writer, and in my first video, I talked about coming up with plot ideas, how to write, basic plot ideas to come up with a story. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit more about fantasy novels. First of all, to write a fantasy novel, you got to be creative. You got to think outside the box. Um, Basically, the best way to start off with a basic idea for a fantasy novel, it could be what person has what type of power. It could be whatever the character is, whoever you believe the main character is, what type of power do they possess? How does the power affect them? How does the power affect people around them? How does the power is can they control that power? How do they discover that power? How do they basically realize they have that power? And I feel like for a fantasy writer, you have to think outside the box. You can't think about the normal things. I mean, the basic idea, like I said, is thinking about that main character, what type of power they have, how does that power affect them, how does that power affect the people around them. Now, I would that would be the first idea that I come up with. Who possesses what power? Now, if it's multiple characters that you're thinking about, what power do this first character have? What power does this other character have? Whose power is stronger? Now, it could be one person that possesses that power. It could be a whole community of people that possesses that power. It could be a whole country of people that possesses that power. Who has the power? Who has the who can develop their power the quickest? Um, are they dependent on that one person that possesses that power? Like I said, it could be a community of people that possesses a power. Like for me, if I was to write a fantasy novel, I would think about what kind of power would I want to possess? What kind of power would I want to have? And how can I use my power, whether it's for good or bad? That's another thing. When you talk about fantasy, the character that you develop, are they a good person? Are they good? Or are they evil? And if they're evil, why are they evil? What made them evil? Um, was it their childhood? Was it something that they experienced? Is it one particular person that brings out the evil in them? If they're good, why are they good? Why do they have their heart to help other people? Do they only care about helping themselves? Do they care about helping people around them? Do they care about helping their girlfriend or boyfriend? How did they develop that power? How did they develop the kindness in their heart to want to help other people? If they're evil, what did they develop that evil in their heart to want to hurt other people, do harm to other people? When you talk about fantasy, it's not really too out the box to write a fantasy novel. For all my writers out there, it's not. It's about coming up with the character, coming up with the power that that character has, and is that character good or bad? Why are they bad? Why are they good? That's the basic idea when you talk about coming up with a fantasy novel. There's thousands of fantasy novels out that gets published on an annual basis, and for the most part, a lot of those characters possess certain powers. You could kind of think about comic books. You could think about your favorite movies. I feel like the best way to write a fantasy novel is to read other fantasy novels to find out what worked, what didn't work. Read a successful fantasy novel, read a non-successful fantasy novel, and try to figure out what worked to make that other fantasy novel successful and what worked to make that other fantasy novel not successful. Now, I believe as a writer, there's no true way to write, period. But there is a difference between a good story and a not so good story. I don't believe there's any such thing as a bad story. Um, but there is a difference between a story that makes sense and that's real good, and there's a difference between a story that makes no sense and maybe it isn't good at all. But as a writer, believe in yourself. Never let anybody tell you you're not good enough. Sorry about that, color. But never make sure that you as a writer know, stay true to yourself. So like I said with fantasy, think about the power that person develops. Now, do they develop that power? Were they born with that power? Were they given that power from a hierarchy? Does someone rain down and grant them that power? Do they have a bloodline of people that had that power, and as one person passes away, that power automatically jumps into the soul of the next person? Are they like a royal family that runs their whole kingdom, runs their whole country because they're royal, because everybody looks way up at them and they look down on everybody? And then now, once you think about the power that they possess, what you think about the main characters, now you have to get to the whole plot of the story. And when you talk about fantasy, there's there's no limit on what you can do to for a plot. There's really no limit. You have you can think about anything. It could be the planets, and one person runs this planet, another person runs this planet, and the whole objective is to destroy the other planet so your planet is the last planet to exist. um, like I said, it could be a royal family, and it could be another royal family that they're battling. One person owns half the world, the other family owns the other half of the world, and they're battling for complete dominance. It's really no limit on how you can write a fantasy novel. Um, I would say the best way to start off is to think whether it's going to be about one person that possesses that power, or is it going to be about a group of people that possesses that power. And once you think about that, for me, I would say, I don't know, I mean, as a writer, you got to come up with your own ideas, but it could be long lost siblings, and both of them possess a power. They don't know one another. They begin battling. One sibling could begin doing a lot of crime. They're using their power for evil, and then they got another sibling that uses their power for good. They One day they run into each other, because I don't care how big the world is. The world isn't that big. Eventually, you'll come across people that you know, whatever. But as when you talk about fantasy, it has to be your mindset. How does these why is this sibling bad? Why is this sibling good? Just a basic idea. Um, but the main core of writing a fantasy novel is there's no limits. There's really no limitation on what to write about, how to write it. Um, like I said, you could come up with one main character. It could be a community of main characters that you're writing about. It's really no limitations. But I would say, as a fantasy writer, the sky's the limit. Keep going. Do not limit yourself. Don't put yourself in a box when you talk about writing fantasy novels. You have to think broad. Never, have a narrow mind of thinking, because it would not work. Like I said, it's good to read a lot of novels that worked and read novels that haven't worked. Um, not to use ideas from the other artists or authors, but to just see what worked. And for me, I feel like, as a writer, the best way to develop your writing skills is to read other writers, because we all are different. We all think different. Um, we all have different mindsets. But the best way to understand what works and what doesn't work is to read other novels. When you talk about fantasy, the main goal, of course, is the wow factor. And I believe, as a writer, when you talk about writing fantasy, it's about not just writing things that's out out of the ordinary, extraordinary things, but it's about writing stuff that people can say, "Wow, like that's cool." Like, it could be a young girl, she develops a power to read minds, and she uses that power for evil. She can know everybody that she comes across. She reads their mind, and she figures out their whatever, all their personal information, and she gets to their personal belongings, and she uses that and makes all the money from them. She gets the whatever, the bank account informations, or the driver license information, whatever it is, like just a basic idea, because as much good people as it is in this world, it's a lot of evil people, and I feel like with fantasy, you got that ability to talk about everything. You can use real life situations in fantasy and add a lot to it. It's like it could be a president that runs the country, but his his bloodline is of of a fantasy. His bloodline is of people that have possesses a certain power that nobody in the world would ever vote for, because they know that if these people get into power, they're gonna take over everything. And he somehow tricked everybody into liking him, never revealing his powers, never showing that he's immortal. And once he gets to the top, now he's showing everybody that he does have power. He's immortal, and it's a wrap after that. When it comes to fantasy novels, I feel like the sky's the limit. Um, the best thing to do is to first develop that main character. That's the main thing. To develop that main character, develop that first character, figure out, are they good, are they evil, why are they good, why are they evil, what happened to them to make them this way, and what kind of power they possess, how that power affects them, how that power affects people around them. Is there anybody else that possesses that power? Um, is it a, like I said, a bloodline? Could it be the entire family that possesses that power? Could it be random people from all over the world that possesses that power? You have to really sit there and think about that. I feel when it comes to fantasy, you write, you think about those ideas, you start off with that, and then you go in from there. My name is Omar Black. I'm gonna keep saying it. Make sure you go get my novel, 1001 Short Stories and Poems. It's available on Amazon.com. This is part two, 1001 Short Stories and Poems, part two, the prequel. It's just a basic, yeah, it's a compilation of short stories and poems about real life situations. Has some fantasy in there as well. Um, I got a lot more videos to come, but when it comes to fantasy, the best thing that you can do is not limit yourself. Whatever you're thinking, whatever power that you wanted to possess when you were a kid, even as an adult, write about that. How does that power affect you? How does that power affect people around you? Can you control that power? And what 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 do you have to do to be able to use that power? Is that a power that just happens randomly? Can you control it? Can you use it whenever you want to? Can you not control it? Why you can't control it? What do you have to do in order to control it? Does anybody else possess the power that you possess? I feel when it comes to fantasy, there's absolutely no limitations. Don't let anybody tell you that there's any limitations. Just write, 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 write. And for anybody that says they have writer's block, me personally, I don't believe in writer's block. I feel like the best way to get over it is to write. Whether you're writing continuing a story that you already started, or you start writing other stories. My way of just continuing to write is, I went from writing a bunch of novels to writing a bunch of short stories and poems, which is the reason why I wrote those two books. And it just was a way for me to continue to write, continue to come up with ideas. And I finally realized I don't have writer's block. I don't believe in writer's block. I don't believe writer's block exists. I don't believe in the words writer's block. I feel that the best way to get over it is to write, and just keep writing, keep writing. Um, we're the outcasts, we're the people that they label as weirdos or whatever. It is what it is. But just write, 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 write. Whatever ideas you have, jot it down. Come up with outlines. Write scenes, write characters, and when you get enough ideas on the paper, go in, start developing your novel, and there it goes from there. Thank you.